Hi guys, in this video I'm going to explain to you how to calculate the area of any triangle. So I'm sure you're already able to calculate the area of a triangle using the formula half times base times perpendicular height. However, for this triangle that I've got here, I do not have a perpendicular height, and therefore I would either need to work it out using a combination of trigonometry and Pythagoras to calculate missing parts of a triangle that I may possibly need, or I can use this formula. So this formula helps me to find the area of any triangle. As you can see, it's got lowercase letters and it also has an uppercase letter here. Because I have got the sine function within my formula, I do need to make sure that my calculator is in degrees mode, and therefore you just need to make sure that you get that set correctly on your calculator before you start. Remember that to find the position of the lowercase letters, they go opposite the capital letters, and therefore this would be my lowercase a, this would be my lowercase b, and this would be my lowercase c. So to show you some examples how we use this formula, so here's my first example. Find the area of this triangle. Now, in my original equation that I am given, that is area is half AB sine C. Now we know that capital C is where my angle is, and therefore what I'm going to do is I'm going to label that C on my diagram, lowercase c. My other two points, it doesn't matter which way round, I label them A and B, so I'm just going to choose like that. Lowercase a is opposite my uppercase A, and lowercase b is opposite my uppercase B. Now to find the area. So the area is going to be half times my value of A, which is 14.7, times my value of B, which is 21, times sine C. So I get sine of 81. Typing this into my calculator, half times 14.7 times 21 times sine 81. I get an area of 152, just move that, 0.4496954, which if I round to three significant figures is 152 centimetres squared. Centimetres squared because I'm calculating an area. So that example is probably the most basic of questions that you could get asked. The next one I've got for you is where you are given the area of the triangle, but this time you are required to work out the missing side. So again, as I said before, I'm going to label the angle that I know as C, because that works really nicely with the formula, and then for the other two I'm going to label them A and B. I'm going to add in my lowercase letters. So lowercase a is opposite my capital A, lowercase b opposite my uppercase B, and lowercase c opposite my uppercase C. So I'm going to write out the formula. Area is half AB sine C. And now to fill in the information that I'm given in the question. So the question states that the area is 36.8 centimetres squared. So if I swap out my word area for the value of what the area is, I can then now substitute in my values of A, B and C into the formula. So I've got a half times my value of A, which is 8, my value of B, which is x, and my value of sine C, which I replace the C for 50. What I'm now going to do is to just simplify this. So 36.8, half times 8 times x is 4x, because half of 8 is 4, therefore I'm left with 4x sine 50. Now I need to find the value of x. So to get rid of the 4, I would divide both sides by 4, and to get rid of the sine 50, I'm going to need to divide both sides by sine 50. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I'm going to divide both sides by 4 sine 50, which I can then write as 36.8 divided by 4 sine 50 equals x. Type that into my calculator. 36.8 divided by 4 sine 50. I get x is equal to, move it this side, 12.00974706. So x is equal to 12 centimetres to 3 significant figures. My next example, very similar but slightly different. So for this example, I'm again given the area, but this time I'm asked to find the value of theta. So just as before, I'm going to label my sides. You've seen me do this a number of times now, and therefore I'm not going to continue to keep explaining it. So now that my triangle is all labelled, I'm going to write out my formula. Replace my area for the value, and replace the information that I know with what is in my triangle. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to simplify the half times 14 times 26. So I get 91 is equal to 182 sine theta. Again, just to get this 182, I've times a half times 14 times 26. Now, to get sine theta on its own, I'm going to divide both sides by 182, and therefore I'm going to get half. Now, to get theta on its own, I need to do inverse sine. So as you may remember from before, I need to inverse sine on both sides. So inverse sine of a half will give me my value of theta. So shift and sine to get your inverse of sine of a half gets me 30 degrees. Nice and exact. Just to show you those workings, I inverse sine both sides, which left me with inverse sine of a half is equal to theta. When I type this into my calculator, I got that value of 30, which is what I've written there. Finally, my last example for you. Now this question does require us to do quite a bit of working. We're asked to find the area of this triangle. Now, as we've explained, or as I've explained so far, is I'm going to need to know an angle. Now it doesn't really matter which angle I use in this case because I have got all three sides, but I haven't been given the angle. So what I'm going to need to do is to calculate one of the missing angles. it doesn't matter which one, but I'm going to go for this one. To work out this angle, I'm going to use the cosine rule. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to label this C, as I know I'm going to need to use that as C later on in my area of the triangle calculation. Just label my sides. And by using the cosine rule, I'm going to name that theta. So I get cos C equals b squared plus a squared minus c squared all over 2ab. So cos C equals 10.2 squared plus 8 squared minus 5.3 squared all over 2 times 8 times 10.2. Now to get C, I'm going to inverse cos of the answer I get when I type this into my calculator. I'll do this now. So 10.2 squared plus 8 squared minus 5.3 squared over 2 times 8 times 10.2 gets me this value here. I'm not going to write that all out. I'm now going to move on to this part of my working. So I'm going to inverse cos of the answer that I just had on my calculator, and that will give me that value. So C equals 30.95887414. I'm not going to round that at this stage because I want to use this full value within my calculation to find the area, because remember the original question asked me to find the area of this triangle. So I'm going to write out my formula for my area. Area is half AB sine C, which is calculated by half times, remind myself of my value of A, which was 8, my value of B, which was 10.2. Times the value of sine C, which is that value there, which is still on my calculator here. So I'm just going to write answer in there when I type in this to my calculator. So typing this into my calculator, I get 0.5 times 8 times 10.2 times sine of that previous answer that I just had on my calculator. My final answer, I get 20.98844548, and therefore I'm left with 21 centimetres squared to 3 significant figures.